Welcome to the Gloves Are Off Overtime Edition. I'm Moses Woldu, and I got some great guests with me. Of course, my co-host from First and Foremost, Greg Buchanan, and the New Cap Radio Program Director, and that's Kurt Price. How's it going, man?
Really good.
Excellent. You guys ready for this?
We're ready.
All right. Well, we ended off the show with Phaneuf talking about a guy who's being overpaid, but that's what the market value is, and that's as a defenseman. Now, we're going to move into the NFL and quarterbacks. Of course, the quarterback position, regardless, is the most important position and the most highly paid. Now you have Jay Cutler with the Chicago Bears, and even though he had a lackluster season, partly due to injuries, he's still being paid top dollar with another big lucrative contract, higher than Joe Flacco, who won the Super Bowl the year ago. So, guys, do you feel that this is another inflated contract situation? Was Chicago just desperate to get anybody in there? They had a pretty solid backup, too, who played better and had better statistics.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's a situation where they just needed to have somebody. So, for sure.
Did they overpay? Of course they
Yep.
overpaid. But can they have anybody else that as good as him? No. And so they're kind of forced at their hand, and they have to sign Cutler. You know, quarterbacks just don't drop out of the tree for you unless you develop them. And I don't think Chicago's in a big rush to develop anybody. They need somebody in there right now.
Yeah, but even though you had a guy like him, you don't necessarily have to sign him to a big contract like you did. Maybe sign him for 5 years, but this guy's earning well over $100 million. I don't think he's worth that money. He hasn't really proven anything, and to be honest with you, he's not a top 10 quarterback. Is that a questionable move? Considering you have a guy like Mark Trestman, who's a great coach, coached the Montreal Alouettes, had some great quarterbacks working with him. He's a quarterback's guy. They love him. But do you think this is way too much?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not going to take the route that they're all overpaid. But seriously, they just, like, somebody believes in that guy and knows when they look down the pipe there's nothing else coming. So this is what we're going to have to do.
But unfortunately for Trestman, that's likely the end of his NFL coaching career in a few years' time because of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a bad thing for him. He gets stuck with his quarterback. He has to live or die with his quarterback, and he's going to die because of it.
The Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, they will have their inductions, or at least the ballot will be released tomorrow on Wednesday, January the 8th. Guys, is there a player that you see that hasn't made it to the Hall of Fame that deserves to be in there? You got like the Tim Raines, who was great with the Expos, a guy I think is Hall of Fame worthy. You got a couple guys recently moving up, like Jeff Bagwell with the Houston Astros, played very well in his career. What do you guys say?
I'm a big Tom Glavine fan. Always have been a big Tom Glavine fan.
So Glavine deserves
I think
a decision to go to the Hall.
How many Cy Youngs? 2?
See, I'm not entirely sure how much he's won.
2, I think.
He's won 2. Well, that entire Braves pitching staff in the mid-'90s, early '90s was fantastic.
I would say Tommy Glavine, Greg Maddux, those two.
They'll be locks. It seems like they'll be locks.
And the other guy that I really like him because he meant so much to his organization was Alan Trammell. I think Alan Trammell for Detroit was Mr. Detroit when he played there. So and the other guys, Barry Bonds, it comes a little baggage there. Sammy Sosa, a little baggage there. Mark McGuire, even more baggage. Great players, but there's so much.
Eventually, they got to be put in the Hall, right?
Oh.
Their numbers are too hard to ignore.
Clemens.
Even though some of them have not tested positive, referring to Barry Bonds, there hasn't been a conclusive evidence or any conclusive evidence that he actually took any performance-enhancing drugs. I'm just saying. He's a jerk? Yes.
Well, trust me, there's a lot of jerks in the Hall of Fame.
We don't know. Yeah.
There's
a lot of alcoholics in the Hall of Fame.
There's a lot of alcoholics, and that's the thing where a lot of alcoholics, a lot of guys that did a lot of bad things illegally. They did. And one guy actually murdered a player, and it is actually in the Hall of Fame, but we won't get into that.
So, you guys good with that? That's how we're going to end our show?
Yeah, the steroid thing is different, though. I mean, that's completely different. You think alcohol would hinder your performance, right?
Yeah.
Like, steroids is going to improve your performance. That's completely different. Murdering somebody, it has nothing to do with what you do on the field.
Ty Cobb.
Unless you're Ty Cobb.
Ty Cobb is the one that there's questions whether or not there's a couple of people that are deep down.
Probably the most hated man in baseball history. Let's just put it that way.
Did pistol whip a person and questionably whether or not he killed a guy. But he's a hell of a ball player.
Well, that's all that matters. All right, guys? That's how we're going to end our show. That's how we're going to end this segment. I appreciate it, Greg, as always. And thanks, Kurt Price,
Thanks for having
for
me.
joining us, man. Appreciate it. All right, and thank you for taking the time to visit us on our Facebook page. You can tune in every Tuesday night on CITL at 7:30, and then come back here to kind of see the questions that weren't answered and get to see these guys talk about Ty Cobb and still whipping somebody, I guess, in this case. All right, in the meantime, we will see you in 7 days.